So when we had the idea to have this press conference, a lot of people had asked what was the rationale or why were we doing this. There were a lot of reasons. One is to thank all of the donors that have been so generous to us over a period of time, and then the focus obviously this week, the D3 week and the fundraising week for us is significant. Before I kind of go into some details, let me first thank Marketing Johnson, Vice President and Blugold alum, Jason Plant, who's in the back, so big round of applause for him. McDonough Manufacturing and Sue Teets, who's also a sponsor for us this week and has been gracious enough to have matching funds, is not here, but I'd like to obviously acknowledge her and give her a round of applause because she's been a great supporter of us. So a couple things, I say a couple, but bear with me, this list, laundry list of accomplishments so far this year is well worth acknowledging and being patient to hear all of it. But before I get to that, let me just say, I read something the other day. Leadership is getting student athletes to do what they don't want to do and like it. When people ask in the first 9 months that I've been here, what have been some of the special things about this place? And that is it. We have a lot of coaches and that have the ability to do that with our student athletes, to get them to compete at a high level, to train at a high level, and to do things, again, that are very uncomfortable. And it's special. This place is really special. Today we have a few outstanding student athletes I'd like to acknowledge. First and foremost, our most recent national champ, wrestler Jared Stricker. Big round of applause. Congratulations to you. Multiple-time All-American, and certainly, obviously, if you saw the videos of that moment, people ask, like, what are some of the most favorite moments that I've had so far? Certainly that was it. One of the unique things about wrestling is the families get to sit mat side in the national championships, and I'm sitting there, we're watching it, but the acknowledgement and the embrace with this family after, and see the emotion and all that's put into that is a special moment. So that was certainly one of my favorite. Beyond that, I've got an opportunity to watch him train. Everybody thinks about the end result and looking at that moment, but to me, it's what he's done in the building before that, and it's pretty special. So again, thank you and congratulations to multiple-time All-American and certainly another national champ, UW-Eau. Congratulations on what you did this year. Big round of applause for you. I don't know a ton about throwing, but my niece was a thrower, and obviously, so I have a little bit of an idea. But again, to me, it's not necessarily the actual end result. It's all the work that was leading into that. I've had the opportunity. People always ask why I go in and watch track and kind of just roam around. It's because I want to see our athletes practice. That's what I love most, getting and watching, opportunity to see that. So again, congratulations, and we're looking forward to watching you compete in the spring, which is going now. And then Mitch Stegman, again, multiple-time national champ and All-American. Again, congratulations on the indoor national champ. So big round of applause for him. Beyond that, I've seen these three individuals. They're the epitome of what I think a Blugold is. Obviously, very selfless in things that they do. I've seen them in social settings, right? So I've seen Jared at a men's basketball game, Jacob being a goal judge at women's hockey, obviously Mitch running around helping us in the Blugold golf event, and seeing that, thinking about what's the epitome of a Division III student athlete in a Blugold. That's it. Those that can obviously be at the peak of their sport, be at the peak of what they represent for us athletically, and then obviously be great students and great ambassadors for us in a social setting. So again, they're just a very small sample size of what our entire athletic department in the 9 months that I've got the opportunity see. So I appreciate that. Some other accomplishments up to this point, and when I say besides individual, I say we a lot, obviously because there's a number of people that are involved in that process, from our athletic training staff, our strength and conditioning staff, our administrative team, coaches, and volunteer assistants. It is special. So up to this point, we've had 9 teams compete in the NCAA events, 80 total student athletes. Of that, we've had 23 All-Americans up to this point, 3 WIAC championships, 2 teams that participated in WIAC championship game, 4 WIAC performer and essentially players of the year, and Max Guchar, Harriet Toth, Jakob obviously was another one, and Jared. So, when you talk about a great year on paper, when we look at the whole body of work, it's been fantastic. I should acknowledge that we've had 117 student athletes be acknowledged as all conference performers, and this is one that should get more notable acknowledgement from all of us in this room, including, and I do believe that we do acknowledge this, but 5 scholar athletes, so the pinnacle of what we embody both athletically and academically. So Tristan Massey from wrestling, Sophie Rausch, women's hockey, Cindy McGuine from women's swim and dive, Carolyn Schultz from women's cross country, and Sydney Pressler in women's tennis. So a big round of applause for them. And then last but not least, I always tell Nick and Spencer to keep a running total, because I think one of the things that's really important is that we constantly acknowledge winning is extremely difficult. Let me just say that winning is extremely difficult. The time and preparation that it takes to win, it's just hard. It's a long process, and we've acknowledged that and have had 166 victories as a department so far this year. So when you think about that, as tough as our conference is, and again, I acknowledge our colleagues in our conference are exceptional, but even nationally, it's not easy to win. So we've accomplished that as a group. So again, to all of the coaches here and the student athletes and those that support all of us, I say, all of us, the external, a big round of applause to all of you and to all of them. 166 victories so far this year is pretty awesome. So big round of applause for all of you. So that leads to, as you talk about that leads to things of why this week is so important. Obviously, financial resources and the flexibility that's associated with that, from our alums to families that support our endeavors, is really key. And we're lucky enough that this week I know we're going to knock it out of the park. I know we're going to do great. I have a lot of belief in the families that support us, and our alums and many of our sponsors as well that have been gracious enough, again, to put matching funds at the forefront of this. So, but without further ado, to talk a little bit about a fund that we currently have and some that will certainly continue to expand that. Let me introduce really when I took this job, one of the best teammates I could have ever asked for. Certainly that embodies everything that I have ever wanted in somebody as an assistant athletic director, as somebody that's side by side in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, has the same vision for what we hope to aspire, and we're keeping the momentum going. My favorite part of my day really is sitting in the office in her chair. I don't have it today because I'm not nervous, because she's on my left. Let me just say that. Normally I'm really nervous. My hands are antsy, and I have this blue fidget that I constantly play with that I stole from her office. But again, when you're trying to accomplish something special, you got to have great people around you, and certainly she is one of them. So without further ado, Robin Baker.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see all the smiling faces out here in Blugold world. So I get the honor today to introduce a matching gift that is coming to us from Judy Kruckman. For those of you that are not familiar with Judy, she was our women's AD for a while, and then she was also women's commissioner for the UW-Eau before it became one. Judy's been very supportive of us as women's athletics at UW-Eau Claire for many, many years, and she comes back to the campus. We see her out and about, but today's challenge and this week's challenge is about finding more donors for women's sports. And so that's what we're going to do with Judy's help, is that the first 100 donors to any of our 13 women's sports, Judy's going to give $1,500. And then when we reach 200, she's going to give another $1,500. And then when we reach 300, which we know this is totally achievable, is to get us 300 donors to our women's 13 sports this week. To kick in the last $2,000 for a total of $5,000 that will go to continue to support our women's programs. One of the goals that we're going to do this year is our women's gymnastics team actually needs a new floor for exercise, for their floor exercises. We've put it together and torn it apart about as many times as we can. So we're going to do what we can, and we're going to put $10,000 of Judy's fund money toward a new floor. We need, the total cost is about $30,000, and so this is 1/3 of it, and so we need to find another way to continue to do that. But we appreciate everything that Judy has done for us throughout the years, and we want to acknowledge going forward and the importance of women's sports. So thanks for your time, and we hope that we get 300 plus women's donors for the week. Thank you.
So, again, 300 donors is a lot, but it's achievable, right? Obviously, we have 25 varsity sports, roughly 800 student athletes. You think of that over compounding years, it's achievable. And you know, one of the things I think I acknowledge, Scott Gunderson and Julia and Jill and the rest of the team and those that have been supportive of this endeavor in D3 week. I should have mentioned this at the front end. We're starting with roughly $80,000 of matching funds. You know, $80,000 of people that have committed matching funds, which is pretty significant. So for us, again, when you talk about people that have been very generous with, been very philanthropic and very generous to our department, it speaks volumes. So last but not least, before I take some questions, I think it's important to acknowledge the start of the Champions Fund. We've been fortunate enough that we have a chancellor who is very committed to athletics. I think it's well known. Obviously cares. Obviously, every time he texts me, it's usually some, how are we doing? What's our teams doing? So on and so forth. And I get a thrill of watching him watch our student athletes, whether it's at a hockey game or watching Jared compete. Most recently at nationals. You know, he's invested, and not only invested by him showing up, but invested by obviously caring about the performance of our student athletes and obviously making sure that we're well embedded into the fabric of the institution. And so part of that, his work as in the NCAA has led us to the Champions Fund. They typically award an honorarium for work, and he was the president of the President's Council. I said the chair of President's Council, which is in the NCAA structure one of the highest in terms of responsibility within not only Division I, II, and III, but just the entire NCAA. And so this year we're excited to announce a new fund, the Champions Fund. This fund is possible thanks to the generous donation from Chancellor Smith and his service. And the fund will allow me, the Director of Athletics, currently and ongoing, to use the funds for postseason awards, postseason expenses that is not covered by the NCAA. So when our Blugolds win a national championship, and we get rings or any of those things, our fund will be there for that purpose and beyond. So again, it's not only going to service those that have accomplished the highest of highs, but also any of our student athletes that compete at an NCAA championship when those expenses aren't covered. So again, I know he's not here, obviously a very busy schedule, but I think it's important that we acknowledge and give a round of applause to Chancellor Smith for his donation. So with that, obviously we have, one of the reasons why I wanted our student athletes to be here today, one, to see this, obviously the impact, and then have local media have the opportunity to connect with them to talk about that as well. But before we get to that and close, I'll take a few questions.
Jason, Nick with News 18. Can we just talk about, you were mentioning how you fidget. You seem like you don't have a lot of stress today for numerous reasons. Just how much of a relief is it to have that match or that donation from the chancellor and to have these matching donors? We talked about Judy matching. Just how much of a relief is that to this department having these supporters and these donations?
The direct impact is the people in the room, right? So for me, that's the comforting. I got to rewind that a little bit. When I took this job, I knew that people were really invested, but to what extent? This is an example of that, whether it's Market and Johnson or Sue Teets or any of those. Again, not only in our athletic department, but obviously we have people here that aren't necessarily work for athletics that are well invested into that. And so it is a relief. But at the same time, I think they really acknowledge and know this gives us the flexibility for our coaches, which again, the last thing I want our coaches to worry about is, do I have the ability to execute the program at the highest level in the manner in which I want? And so again, whether that's assistant coach stipends or any of those things, I mean, athletics, it's expensive, right? To compete at a very high level, it's really expensive. But again, what it gives back to the institution, the student athlete experience, is unmatched, right? So we're really grateful for that. It is a little relief, I will say that, to have a starting line of 80,000 and moving forward. I really believe in the power of this week and what it's going to do for our department going forward.
Philip Shortside, Channel 13. With the success that the university has had across such a variety of sports and the visibility that gives the university both in the community and kind of nationally, how important is that to being able, that success, to being able to kind of raise these funds and further these athletes?
Well, let me say this. One of the things that is pretty unique, most of my colleagues will say they want athletics to be the front porch of any institution and university, right? And part of that is, whether we like it or not, athletics seems to be the most visible at times. And some of the underlining work sometimes gets diminished. The way I look at it here is I want the UW Blugold brand and athletics to be the front porch of our town and our city in the Chippewa Valley. And that's bold to say that, right? There's a lot of great things about this community in a very short time that I've gotten the opportunity to know. But I can tell you what, for somebody that hasn't seen a lot of wrestling, but to see what that moment was for our town, for our community, to see when he won and just to see him go up in the stands and see those moments, or to be, again, on the other end, we're watching Jakob and Mitch or any of our student athletes compete at a high level, knowing that it's a bigger purpose for them. Obviously, you don't want to put too much pressure on them in terms of what it is, but it's certainly, you can galvanize an entire community, and we've seen that over time, even before I was here, in terms of whether it's the most recent national champ in terms of women's volleyball, whatever that may be, track, all those different things. So can really galvanize an entire community.
I understand you are looking for 300 donors plus. Is there a total fundraising goal for the week?
More. That's the goal, right? I think one of the things, we don't want to put a ceiling or on what is possible here. I've learned that in a short time. When I first arrived, I thought, privately, here's my goals for the year, besides connecting with the coaches, establishing relationships with Robin and our administrative team, gain credibility within our institution, know that we were going to be great partners, not only athletically, but just the institution as well. And we've achieved that and more, right? I feel great about coming to work every single day, and luckily it's not work. I'm lucky that I have this opportunity. So for me, I don't try to put a ceiling on anything. I just know that people are going to step up. So if I put a number on it, so the number is more. Fair enough? Okay.
Hey, Alan Brown, Leader Telegram. You mentioned an emphasis on women's sports for the fundraising. Oh, actually, I guess Robin did, but
Yeah.
How difficult is it? How much more difficult is it to raise money for the women's sports as opposed to men? And maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, obviously, men's sports has been around a little bit longer in terms of established organizationally, right? So they have less donors, right? So that's the difficulty. But I will tell you, if you don't see what's currently happening, obviously I saw something this morning that people acknowledge is tonight is one of the marquee pivotal moments in women's sports of all time, right? You have, maybe probably anticipated the most highly watched women's basketball games tonight at the national level. And the reason that I mention that is because it's not only there, I think it's beyond that. You look at the attendance for our home volleyball matches or our women's basketball, there is well attended as any of our sports. And so for me, there are people out there that are passionate about it. Certainly we're passionate about it. As I've always said, if we have it and there's a student athlete that's wearing a uniform, I want to be the best at it. And so, and the way that we achieve that is people have to be generous and committed to it. And I believe we do have that, certainly, again, but it's our job to continue to, I guess one of the things too is be a little bit boastful in, we can't be humble. We have a lot of accomplishments on the female student athlete side and our female teams, and it's really important. And that's probably the one thing that bugs me about our coaches I like, and it bugs me too, is that they're very humble. So this week I'm going to ask them not to do that. So, or if you see some things on social media that maybe sound like bragging, that's exactly what we're doing. So.
You mentioned, Robin mentioned the goal of a new gymnastics floor. Are there any other, be it facility projects, any other upgrades, renovations, new things that you're trying to do with the funds that you're bringing in?
Yeah, it's going to be at the discretion of each coach and their program. Certainly for us, I think it's important, whether it's renovating the locker room, whether that's, again, I want them to have the flexibility to do what they feel is important to them. And so again, there's a lot, and I've said this before, there isn't a facility that we're currently in that we're not trying to improve or acknowledge in some way, shape, or form. The most difficult thing for me is the patience that's associated with it. And unfortunately it takes a little bit longer than we always like, but again, that's why this week is so critical, right? The more donations, the more support that we get, the more flexibility that we have. And I'll say this, these are things that are not going to be, they will be utilized in an efficient manner. These aren't things that are going to be used as, again, that aren't important. They're going to be things that we need. Last one?
Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yep.
Where do things stand with men's basketball and the hiring process?
So Sonotag building's coming along great. It's awesome. The building's great. I feel very confident that we're going to identify somebody that is going to mimic the same personality traits, work ethic, passion, and high standard that we currently have in the room. And I'm just going to let that sink in for a second. I feel that. Been very methodical, about the amount of work that has gone into this. For me, it's probably been as intense of the last 2.5 weeks as it's been. For me personally and professionally, my colleagues in the room that have been a part of the process have been excellent, but we're very close, and I'll leave it at that. I think, again, one of the things that this place has taught me is if there's somebody that's going to come into the circle and the family, it better be somebody that has special traits, somebody that's going to exhibit the same qualities that people in this room. I've said this is less nerve-wracking for me than our staff meetings. Our staff meetings for me are like game day. You can't walk in the room with multiple coaches that have won national championships, that have achieved at a high level, that are acknowledged as some of the best in the business, for someone like myself to come in. I can't just come in and fluff the staff meeting. And so that's my game day. I can't tell you that. So for me is identifying a person that's going to exhibit those same qualities, that is going to have somebody that's going to be worthy of being a part of that group. And we're close. All right. So I'll let the rest of you spend some time with our student athletes, which I hope you take advantage of. Obviously, many of them are here from represented from each and every sport. So again, to the student athletes, thank you for this. I really appreciate your time. I know we're in the middle of academic day. So again, thanks for everybody coming. To our coaches and to our alums and our supporters, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.